You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
I am H.O. Talk Show Sir Charles A.A. Ron Chatty Patty in the building with me. If y'all just joining, glad to have my guest host with us today. Y'all know A.A. Ron, color commentator, fine H.O. Going A.A. Ron, man, we're going on 5 summers, bro.
Man, I'm trying to get the miles, 27.
hey. And then, Patty as well, new to the CIM team, new to the Cville area, but so glad to have her.
Happy to be here.
That's right. And, we are joined by Charlotte of Cville tomorrow for this next segment. And as promised, we doing a check-in like we like to regularly do. And we love the fact that we have a transparency in our local city hall through the mayor, Nakia Walker. Mayor Walker, good to see you this Sunday. How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. How are you all?
Doing well. Blessed.
That's good. That's good.
Glad you're doing well because you made a huge announcement on Friday, and you used some strong language that that I want to get to. To where you showed how you are what I'll say politicians are supposed to be, which is a servant of the people. Like I think you made that very clear that led your decision making. So, but for someone who may have been asleep since Friday, I don't know. Mayor Nakia Walker did decide to defend her seat as mayor here on for Charlottesville City Council. So, wow. So, Mayor, for that part, Charlottesville does it a little differently, though, right? And Charlotte made a comment as well. Break down for us what that means for you to run for re-election, and as far as defending that seat, because the council has a vote in that too, right?
Yeah. No. My announcement for re-election simply means that I'm running for city council. Okay. The vote for mayor is determined by the 5 councilors who are elected. And so I knew that it's highly likely that I will not be mayor in the future. None of my colleagues at this point even communicate with me outside of email. And I think that's all by design, but that's a whole nother, probably longer than 30-minute conversation. But so I know that that's a very, that's very possible. And no matter what, and I said this after the first 2 years, no matter what my title is, I come to the table the same, like I did long before there was any title. And so that's not been something that was discouraging. For me, it wasn't even a factor. But yes, the 5 councilors by majority vote are the ones who select the mayor in Charlottesville.
All right.
That's almost for a whole other conversation about mayor council versus manager council.
Yeah.
Relationship. Yes, that's definitely something that I have talked about in the past and wasn't so sure which direction that we should go. And but we are definitely a community that the power that the city manager has, that position should be an elected position. After going through 5 of them since I've been, on council, and some people equating that kind of disruption to a seat that's been held by few and going to being held by 5 over, a 3-year period as a reason for me not to be there. But actually, I think it speaks volumes to the process of change and what is change nice and easy, or is change messy? And change is pretty messy if you're doing it right. And so, but the city manager is a big part of the conversation that we often leave out. And it's, after the past 3 years, I definitely am a now strong advocate for a strong mayor position, and decided that when I was actually exiting in my mind back, in December, I decided, this is for somebody, but just not necessarily for me. And that's pretty much where I've been. But that person in that position should have to answer to the public the same way the 5 councilors do. And they should not be able to hide behind the counselors, which has happened, and I have been on the receiving end of that, and not in a positive way.
Yeah. No, ma'am, saying all that, I have to ask this. Let me coach you real quick. So you said my friends asked me, what is your body telling me?
Yeah.
You said my body is telling me you are all destroying me. You know, of course, like speaking of,
I know.
public office. Right. So, and that's why I say, some very strong words to still choose to want to rerun. So I have to ask you, and I don't even know if you're prepared for this yet, but I have to ask, if you're being that you're running again, that means that you're taking it serious. That means that it's not a lackluster effort. You know what I mean? So I would imagine that you would want the support. So is there an endorsement for you to try to get the support to help you continue your work?
Oh yes, so I think I shared this on Friday. I really have been at a consistent no that I've just been unable to verbalize. And there's so many reasons why I ended up saying yes, and mainly because I just could not utter the no I was feeling internally. I mean, I've said it to, friends. Back in December, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to finish the term because that's just how challenging things were. And in a very unhealthy way, the way white supremacy rules, and should a Black woman have to subject herself to that? That's where I was. And I had no attachment to walking away, but I wouldn't come to the table, halfway doing this. No, there is I know I have to campaign. I know that I am not guaranteed. I have never been a shoo-in. I will never be anybody's shoo-in. So everything that I get, I will have to fight for. But one of the most important things for me was participating in this campaign cycle. I mean, you all have had individuals on who are running, and part of, I think, unmasking the illusion, which, going back to the first campaign slogan, and I don't have the second one yet, so I'll just say that in advance, but still unmasking the illusion is this community who it says it is? Now, people will talk about my personality, they will talk about my delivery, but they don't talk about the substance of what I do often. I think it's very important to listen to what everybody has to offer during this election cycle without letting me allow them off the hook. I also haven't bragged about myself during my tenure, but I've done some pretty amazing things that none of the people running can match. And people often kind of, they write articles about everything but what I've accomplished during this time. And so part of the decision to run is to make sure that people will know what you're choosing over me, and what does that say about the community. It doesn't say about me. What does it say about the community? So that is something that I wanted to make sure happened.
Now I'm going to kick it over to Patty. She had something for you. But let me rephrase what I asked you, though. All right. So are you endorsing anyone that's running for council to help you with your work?
Oh, that's not what I heard. Oh,
okay. Yeah.
So at this time,
but that was a good answer, too, though.
I'm sorry. No, at this time, no. I have, and we can talk about that in more detail, but I think people are running the same way the last council election, Lloyd ran, and Lloyd has run before. And Lloyd offered this community a status quo, Councillor Snook, and civility that this community has thrived off of. Not everyone in the community, but especially the white majority in the community has thrived off of. And this time was able to successfully win because he offered a counter to me that people wanted to see. And if that's where we are at, that doesn't just speak to where we're at in our community, but it speaks to where we're at in the larger community. And it speaks to why, since we were enslaved as Black people, why we're still having the same discussions and same comments, and we allow officials to come in and say they are for justice, that they are for undoing the legacy of enslavement, all of these things during a campaign cycle, and then quickly forget right after that. And we allow that because we don't come to the table boldly. And so if I lose, I know people who don't run sometimes because they know they'll lose and what they'll do to their future. That again was not the type of thing that influenced me. So if there's a candidate that is not here to counter what I stand for, then yes, you know, I would support them. But you all have listened to them. You all have had them on your show. Right. Most people are using me as a platform to boost their support. And so I think it's every right for them to have to earn that.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Walker, Patty here. I am new to the Charlottesville community, and one of the things that inspired me coming in was to hear that the mayor, the current mayor, is a Black woman. And so yesterday, Friday, excuse me, when you made your announcement, we watched with bated breath. I was in the newsroom and we were just hanging on to every word that you were saying, waiting for your decision. But as you revealed some of the difficulties that you experienced, I couldn't help but to put myself in your shoes, because as a Black woman, in having been in corporate America and in the military, there were times where I was the only Black person, let alone Black woman in the room. And I had to watch how I said things, because if I were as firm as a man saying those things, I'd be labeled angry or, you know, however other stereotypes that they place on us. So it brought me to the question that if you could go back to your first day in office, Mayor, with the knowledge that you have now, what would be the advice that you would give yourself?
Oh, yes. I think I was honest with myself on the first day. I think what I know today that I didn't know then is how you read about it. If you read history, you know how firmly white people will plant themselves to fight change. But having witnessed that on the inside and also having to fight the community while I'm fighting that on the inside was probably something that still shocked me, even though I was aware of it happening. And I've had to fight, you know, white people who are very conservative. I've had to fight white people who are very liberal. I've also had to fight with Black people who are very, very liberal and are activists. I've had, you know, white people be very supportive, where I've had very powerful people in leadership who are Black say, why do you talk about race so much? It has been one of those, you know, landscapes where no matter who is presenting what to me, I show up the same. And it has meant that every room I enter, it has been a constant battle. So what I would probably say to myself is to think about Audre Lorde and self-preservation and self-care being an act, you know, of warfare. I kept doing the work every day, even though I did not know how to care for myself at the same time. And I had so much stuff going on personally, and the work is so heavy and it's nonstop that I wouldn't have spent 2 years not taking care of myself, because has put me in the place now where someone can ask, what is your body telling you? And I'm like, you know, I know what my body is telling me. I feel like I could sleep. I need like the comfort of a beach, like for a year. And after that, I could tell you what maybe a, you know, semblance of being rested felt like. So I'm going into this completely exhausted, which has been why it has taken me. I was back on with you all in March saying I was going to make the announcement on March 7th, and then quickly realized that the answer was no, but I didn't want to say no. I also couldn't make the announcement associated with my good friend, Dr. Edwards, because I had to do it not for her and her request this time. That had to be different. It had to just be a different driver. And so there were a lot of things that prevented that decision. But one thing I do know for sure, like you're saying, Patty, and nice to meet you, and hopefully we'll meet soon, you know, in person, or at least a one-on-one Zoom. You reached out the other day, and I know I have to return that. But is what does, as strong as I am, because that's one thing that's undeniable, is that I am strong. And if I'm saying I'm this exhausted, what does that mean about all the other people who don't have the level of fight I have in me? So that's one of the reasons I couldn't quit. I can't have little Black girls thinking, or Black women thinking, or Black boys or Black men thinking like you have to keep dealing with this, and that it's so overwhelming and so powerful that you have to quit this. And so I know how to exit, and I have no attachment to exit, but it's like, no, we're on the front lines of this and we're going to kick some butt, because you all are the ones that's wrong, and you all are the ones that need to go. I'm not the one that need to go. And so that was part of the, you know, the decision to stay and fight, is that we deserve it. And we deserve the kind of community. We built this community.
That's right.
This community has continued to be built off the backs of us. And I'm speaking specifically to Black people at this moment. And I'm not walking away because white people want to return to normal, that because their lives work pre-2017, when our lives have never worked in this community. And I've said this every day in every room. And there are people who are the overseers of status quo, people who this system of oppression and discrimination works for. And I'm not going to just walk away from that. And I'm willing to deal with how my body is feeling, to deal with the exhaustion, to deal with all of that. And I hope I don't, because I have a whole, you know, hopefully program of taking better care of myself. And I've been doing a pretty good job over the past few months. So I feel that I can do it. But I was also thinking at that same time that I was walking away. So I also don't know what staying and that radical self-care looks like. But it's important for us, you know, it's important for us to stay, claim the space that people have already died for us to be in, and maintain it. And again,
that's right.
I can't vote for myself. I mean, I can vote for myself, but I'm not, I need a lot of people to vote for me, right? But even if those people don't vote for me, the same people that didn't vote, if people don't, you know, switch over and vote, however it looks, I am going to bring so much fire to this campaign cycle that throughout, when people are telling the story throughout history, they will tell a story of a community who was okay with white supremacy, or a community who really was working towards dismantling it. And we will be able to tell more of that, unmask more illusions through this campaign cycle.
This actually, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Charles. Go ahead.
This really reminds me of when your first campaign was unmasking the illusion. So I sort of have two questions, which is how much, if any, do you feel has been unmasked in the last few years during your tenure? And going forward, what would be your biggest policy priorities to keep doing the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So a lot has been unmasked. So much has been unmasked, but people have been able to do what they typically do and say that if you were a different person, then we would have gotten more accomplished. If you show up in the rooms better. So they are able to deflect from the real issues by placing blame, and again, on a Black woman. So that's one thing. What hasn't been unmasked, I think, is the number. And this is, as I go through doodling about what my campaign slogan is going to be, which this is not going to be it, but something that ended up in a box in the center of the paper is unmasking the overseers. And there are so many people in this community who has that facade pretense of wanting, that say they truly understand the implications of equity and they are for it, but they're not. And so that's one of the things that I think people are still able to hide behind. But if you truly listen to them, then you are clear on whether the individuals are able to create a community that's equitable. I said at one time I had people who were white and liberal, white and conservative, and a Black woman all yelling at me about the same person, a Black man. And I said, if I've been consistent in all my statements throughout my tenure on council, and all three of these people agree with this person, what does that say? We just have to open our minds and really pay attention, to what is happening.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that I think are a challenge. We still have the same issues that I ran on the first time. I had an uncle tell me, do you think a couple years is enough to undo, hundreds of years of systemic issues? I actually do, which is something that gets me in a lot of trouble. A lot of things that happen downtown that are slowed are not due to the fact that we can't make the policy better.
Right.
It's that we have people in place who don't want the level of change as rapidly as change could happen. So I still am a very impatient person, and I still think that it's possible for us to move things forward at a faster pace than we do. But we still have the affordable housing issues. So affordable housing, reconfiguration, we still have a major wealth gap that the pandemic will only increase the gap there. And we have every major employer, well, the two major employees within the city limits, both the city of Charlottesville and university, thought it was okay during a pandemic when they have reserves and billions of dollars in endowments. For the university, the city has millions of dollars in reserves for them to lay off the lowest wage workers during that time. And because of my advocacy, they were able to stay on for 6-month period. But if it hadn't been for that, I'm sure they would have been out the door day one. We still have not created a very, a youth-centered community. We're still struggling between a retirement community or less of a retirement community instead of this robust community that attracts younger people to the area and that keep our youth engaged and out of trouble. But I would say my number one is the affordable housing piece. People deserve public housing that are resource rich because we don't have enough space in this community to build homes for everybody. But people also deserve to be homeowners, and we need to subsidize that and create and lessen those gaps. And our public housing communities, we have a director there that's been there less than a year, but I think is able to create the type of community with the support that people deserve to live in. And we've just broke ground because of the delays during the pandemic on the first phase of, development or redevelopment in our public housing communities. And CRHA owns one of the largest, or one of the largest landowners in the community. I'm on that board. I'm on council to make sure they get the resources, they need. And I probably will say this to leave because, all of these things are going to come up during the conversation. But Councilor Hill said in an email to me that basically she was tired of it being like a me. And I'm not even a me person. You all can't point to something where I was like, look at me, look what I've done. And Wes and I talked about this during our live because Wes is one that's on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter or something, about any place he's at. And people had an issue with us. So it doesn't matter whether you're like me and you just want the work to be done and you don't ever feel like, ever need somebody to give you credit for it, or you're a person like Wes who has the spotlight on him and shows they don't want the work done. And what I said to her in this email is that if you want credit for an idea, you have one. Because this email is probably going to come out, so I'm just going to talk about it before it's released. But if you want, because if you want to do something, then you stay up 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and create stuff. Don't come on here just because council ultimately has to vote for what I present and act as if I am the issue because I haven't created a kumbaya around it. You all can create things for me to vote on. So those are the type of challenges that I haven't been 100% about, how I was going to work around it. And that was a challenge for me, but that's pretty much it. And I'll just say one more thing if I can before, because I know I think we're coming up on time, even though I probably should take the next segment too, but whatever, just say, just say that. But part of what is a challenge with media, because a lot of people think, and there was an article about the Chicago mayor reaching out to Black members of the media. I never know what you all are about to ask me, and I welcome those questions. We don't hang out. We're not friends on, wherever people be hanging out in Charlottesville, because all I do is work. So it's not that type of, when you're talking about, I guess to use like Ibram's Kendi words, like anti-racist media, right? Which the person that's coming on, they don't know what that means and should probably Google it. But what the challenges is in Charlottesville is that there are a lot of individuals who are okay with how media has been used to tarnish and abuse people, especially Black people in this country. And that is a challenge. And so part of me and who I talk to and do interviews with, I made that clear after the campaign cycle. They were not kind to me. They haven't been kind the whole time. And kind doesn't mean that you have to tell a story that's, appealing to me. You don't have to be favorable to me, but you should be fair. And your media should be just. And so that is one of the things I get a lot of heat about, but I don't come on here because I know you all are going to say everything I like to hear. I never know what you all are going to say and what I'm going to get in return. But I appreciate the fact that we can have a conversation that is geared towards what the community needs are and whether what I've said in the past I'm still doing versus what we can say to help her dig, to help dig her grave. And that's a difference. So I just wanted to put that out there to make sure that I wasn't, since I was online, it was put as if there's an interview with me and your next person. No, and I would not do an interview with that person. Right. Make that clear.
And that was brought up too, by the way, but no, we definitely respect that. And Ms. Mayor, thank you as always. We are up against time, but like I said, always appreciate you being willing to reach the audience through this platform. So until next time, stay safe, and we will be in touch.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, and congratulations once again. And thank you for your service.